My name is Daniel. I am 32 years old, and for a long time, I believed my life was simple and predictable. I worked a regular job, paid my bills on time, and came home to the same apartment every evening. Laura and I had been together for 6 years. We were not loud, we were not dramatic. People often described us as calm, stable, and boring in a good way. I agreed with them. I liked routine. I liked knowing what tomorrow would look like. Every morning followed the same pattern. I woke up first, made coffee, and stood by the kitchen window while the city slowly came alive. I always used the same blue mug with a small crack near the handle. Laura hated that mug. She said it looked old and ugly. I never argued with her about it. I just kept using it. She usually joined me 20 minutes later, already scrolling on her phone, barely awake. We didn't talk much in the mornings, and at the time, that felt normal. One morning, something small happened. So small that I almost ignored it. I asked Laura if she could pour me some coffee while I answered a work email. She didn't look at me. She told me to do it myself. Her voice wasn't angry. It was empty. When I laughed it off, she suddenly snapped and said I always treated her like she was supposed to serve me. That surprised me. We had never talked like that before. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just went quiet. That was the first time I felt something shift, even though I didn't understand it yet. After that morning, Laura started changing in subtle ways. She stayed at work later. Her phone was always face down. Notifications were muted. When I asked how her day was, her answers were short and vague. I told myself not to overthink it. Everyone gets tired. Everyone needs space. Weeks passed without any real conflict. No screaming, no accusations, just distance. We still ate dinner together, but our conversations felt forced. We still watched shows, but she was always distracted. Sometimes she smiled at her phone, and when I asked what was funny, she said it was nothing. I started noticing how quiet the apartment felt, even when we were both home. It felt like living next to someone who was slowly emotionally packing their bags. I tried to fix things in small ways. I cleaned more. I asked more questions. I planned a weekend trip. Laura said she was too busy. I started sleeping worse. Not because of stress, but because something felt unresolved. One Friday, I left work early. I wanted to surprise her. I bought food from her favorite restaurant and picked up flowers on the way home. I even bought a new mug, thinking maybe it was time to let go of the old blue one. When I opened the apartment door, I heard laughter. Loud, careless laughter. Laura was on the couch with her friend Megan. They were drinking wine. I heard Megan say, "So he still has no idea?" Laura laughed and said, "I thought she was just stressed." I stepped into the room. The silence that followed felt heavy. I asked calmly who the other guy was. Laura froze. Megan left immediately. Laura cried and said it wasn't what it looked like. I told her it was exactly what it looked like. I put the flowers on the table, set the food down, took my keys, and walked out. That night, I didn't go anywhere. I sat in my car on a quiet street. I replayed her words again and again. As long as Daniel keeps paying the bills. My phone filled with messages. Apologies. Explanations. Promises. I ignored all of them. I felt numb. Around sunrise, one message changed everything. Laura said she was pregnant. I stared at my phone for a long time before responding. When I came home, Laura was crying. She said the baby was mine. She begged me to believe her, and I wanted to. I hugged her. For a brief moment, things felt quiet again. But something didn't sit right. That night, I stared at the ceiling and kept thinking about timelines. About dates. About when I had been home and when I hadn't. The next morning, I asked her when she found out. She hesitated and said, 5 weeks ago. 5 weeks ago, I had been out of town almost the entire month. The test confirmed the truth. I was not the father. I remember holding the results and feeling absolutely nothing. When I showed Laura, she didn't deny it. She just looked tired. That was when something inside me finally shut down. Not anger, not hatred, just clarity. We didn't break up immediately. For a while, we lived together like roommates. Separate rooms. Short conversations about bills and logistics. No emotions. No connection. One evening, as I packed my clothes, Laura said she thought I would stay. I told her that was her mistake. She had been too sure of my patience. When I left, there was no dramatic goodbye, just a closed door and silence. I moved into a small apartment. The space felt empty, but honest. I threw away almost everything from my old life. Photos, gifts, memories. Except one thing, the blue mug. I kept it without knowing why. Months passed. Life became simpler, quieter. One evening, I ran into Megan at a grocery store. She told me Laura cheated, not because she hated me, but because she was bored and certain I would never leave. That night, I made coffee. The blue mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. I stared at the broken pieces and finally understood. It was never about the mug, or the money, or even the betrayal. It was about comfort, about habit, about believing another person would tolerate anything. Some people destroy relationships not out of anger, but because they don't fear consequences. And that was the real end of my story.